Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Today, we are going to be talking a little bit about our upcoming archive collection, Droopy McCool Maquette. And this is another signature edition. The signature on this one is Jeannie Lauren, who has joined us today to chat for a bit. Hi, Jeannie. How are you?
Hi, Tom.
How's everything going?
It's great. Very nice. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you so much for making time to chat. Whenever we go into something like this, the first thing I do is look at somebody's credits and where they came from and what they're doing. To me, that's always fascinating. You have there's intensive dance, there's puppet experience, there's really kind of diverse credits going into a monster shop. Um, Talk a little about that past and how do you consider yourself? Are you a performer? Are you a maker? Are you something else?
Well, obviously both
Yeah.
performer and a maker, because I came into it with a background in puppetry, ballet, jazz, belly dancing, acting, and I brought all those skills in a big bag of tricks, some big costumes, belly dancing, glitter, puppets, and did an interview with ILM people. And what was interesting was Dan Howard, who was my design partner at the time,
Mhm.
he recommended me for the job. So, and some of the work I brought, we had done together. And they just liked the fact that I was a transition between movement and creative.
That's an important element. It's one thing to build something; it's another to build something that has to move or emote or act. Um, it's good that you talked about Dan. He's someone, so sadly, Dan's no longer with us. There's a lot of great photos of the two of you working on things together. I had wondered, did you guys have a connection? And so you had worked with him prior to Star Wars then?
Dan and I had a very prolific creative relationship. I would bicycle over to his house in Fairfax, and he would paint the faces on the first puppets that I ever made. I made these beautiful puppets. They were just these paper mache with the beautiful bodies, but they had no faces. And
Uh,
Dan, post Disney, he worked for Disney for a while, and he was just amazing. He would paint these beautiful faces on these puppets. And he launched the Skyana Puppet Show, the Skyana Puppet Endeavor. In fact, he was part of it, and we would go to the Renaissance fairs and do dragons and witches and warlock puppets. And was really had a great time. He was so creative. His mind was going all the time. He did illustrations and cartoons. And so he got to ILM Creature Shop first. And I maybe a year later, he said he brought me in and said, "Hey, I know this girl, blah, 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 blah." And so thanks to Dan, in fact, I have his ILM jacket here. This is Dan.
Ah, that's
He's got
outstanding. Special effects, the revenge. Oh man,
love
that's
this jacket. Gave
that's
it to
so cool.
and we were like just dear friends. He was so creative, and yeah, he did pass away. And but he had many good years at Lucasfilm. So after the Creature Shop, he remained on in different various administrative aspects of the company.
Yeah, it looks like the two of you, um, I for lack of a better word, it it always looked fun when there's photos of you guys. Were you putting on for the cameras, or was that a fun time?
I'm a bit of a showman.
Uh-huh.
You don't want to have your back to the camera when they show up. Every once in a while, this entourage of people would come through the Creature Shop and
Right.
do documentation. We'd kind of set it up a little bit, but we were having fun.
Yeah.
At the same time, it was very interesting. There was a lot of laughing and a lot of intensive.
Yeah. Well, you were under time constraints, and the stuff you were building was not necessarily simple.
Well, um, first of all, my most of the things we were doing were the background characters.
Right.
Now, Phil and Tony and Tim, they were doing some of the more foreground of those particular scenes, but still, we were kind of considered background characters. So one of my favorite stories about Phil Tippett is he'd walk and he'd say, "Jeannie, open your eyes, close your eyes, open your eyes." That's all you're gonna see it. I have used that saying, Phil, for many, 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 many years. That was one of his funniest expressions. So,
That's outstanding.
but it was hard to finish them quickly because we were all perfectionists. We all wanted to get every little seam perfect. We wanted it to look great. You know, we were
Yeah.
so proud of what we were doing.
Well, even if they were background, they were still, some of them, like a man is huge,
Yeah.
and wrinkly, and the a lot of them have different elements of character, and you're also dealing with complex, again, things that have to move, things that have to accommodate a performer inside. Um, did you uh, did your experience as a performer prior inform how you built stuff? And do you think that really helped in what you were doing?
I think it did, absolutely. My forte was movement and expression through movement, through 3 inches of foam, and then a piece of fake fur, and then an eyeball, and then an arm or something.
Yeah.
So a lot of costumes, you'll see my particular company, when I launched Skyana, I called it Cartoons Come to Life. So you could come into my studio and there'd be a creature or a costume just sitting there, but it looked alive. So the first thing that you have to do when you build a costume is to have it look alive. The muscles need to be there, the build out, the bulk of it, the wrinkles, like you said,
Yeah.
and then it has to move. So it's one thing to like build in a wrinkle, but if the arm doesn't move, then it works.
Yeah.
So the trick is to, stretch out your character, the creature itself, and then kind of pull it in and stretch it out and pull it in and stretch it out. And then I would skin them. Now, I'll tell you a little story about Tony McVeigh. Now, he was a master of foam. So
Yeah.
some were done, well, there's so many things to tell you, but like, for instance, Judy. Now, Judy did sculpting, like that big, beautiful head you were showing on her interview.
The big yak face. Yeah.
They molded it and it was a done deal. All the lines were in it, everything was done. But some of the creatures, like the bigger ones, they had to be foam sculpted first. So we get the turkey carving knife.
Yeah.
Tony could take a piece of Scott foam, this big, thick, expensive black foam that they put inside airplane engines, I guess, to filter out the gasoline or something. It's fairly expensive. And he'd carve it up and he'd have a big piece. There'd be foam everywhere all over the floor. And then when he was he'd have a bicep or a tricep or a shoulder. And then we would glue these pieces, sew and glue these pieces on. And the muscles were in it already. Now, if you take that beautifully, so beautifully sculpted and all squishy and foamy, and throw rubber latex on, and then it doesn't move anymore, well, then you've lost all his amazing work. He was a genius at musculature. I learned a lot from watching him sculpt.
Yeah, he's a brilliant sculptor. We actually were just at his studio a few weeks ago, and it's like a wonderland of small, medium, and large. Honestly, it felt like going to school. It was, the anatomy and the movement and the power and the flow of these things. Every sculpture, from the tiniest one to the biggest one, had so much anatomy to it, and it was, he's something else, and a really, like, understated, quiet kind of guy for the building big crazy monsters.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the sculptors were actually kind of quiet. I mean, Tony, Dave, they were very focused. Even Judy. Judy was quite elegant, quite Southern Belle. I like to think of her, polite Southern Belle. Well,
Very polite, yes.
very focused. Me, I'm laying on the floor in the dirt and the fake fur and the glue's all up my elbows and my hair's stuck in it, and had a whole different thing that I was doing. Plus, I'm in and out of it, and jumping in it, and jumping out of it, and lining it, putting straps. Because, like you said, someone has to get into it safely and get out of it. It has to be comfortable. It still has to move. So you're constantly flexing the muscle of the creatures. So I did some of the bigger ones. I didn't work on any of the little tiny ones at all.
Gotcha. There's we've gone through a few folks that were part of the crew. It's always interesting to me that it's a bit of a boys' club, the effects industry, especially in the 80s. It's quite different now, which is cool. But back then, you look at all of these photos and it's like you and Judy, and then, all these crazy guys. Oh, yeah.
Patty
Sorry.
Blau. Patty
Yes.
was creative. She was great too, Patty. Yeah, think of I mean, in a way, they were, I call them the monster boys. I mean, it's like, guys into trucks and cars. These guys were into monsters, and they're like little monster nerds. They didn't even, I don't, they noticed there were girls around. I mean, they were so into what they were doing.
Yeah.
The stories, of different movies that Phil would talk to, and he's mentoring, like Kurt, for instance, Kurt Thatcher. There's
Oh, yeah.
so much fun. Kurt was like, talk about the shop mascot. That was, he was a big young puppy dog at the time. He's highly skilled. They stuck him in the foam shop, lifting all those heavy molds and everything because he was strong. And so I brought something that he did too. I brought a little something creative. Kurt was so creative. And so they were just into they were talking about the early dinosaur and the stop motion. They knew all the history of all the creatures. I knew nothing. I came with ballet and know what the monsters were. I didn't have any background on it, but so it was never, it wasn't boy girl at all. It was just monster nerds.
Right.
You didn't,
Right. People who knew every character Ray Harryhausen ever made, and normal people. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I know which side of that equation I'm on with the monster nerds, but that's fine.
To ILM, I mean, I had seen Star Wars, the original movie. I didn't understand it at all. There was like this dune buggy out in the desert, and what was that? What was that all about? Back to ballet, it's like, what? Yeah. But I was so interested in performing and being a puppeteer and being an actor. So I thought this would be kind of a backdoor for me to get into performing, get in the puppets. That was one of my pitches when I did the job. I can make them, I can build them, but I can get in them and I can perform in them. But of course, unfortunately, it was all, when we got to London, it was all a very strict union. Yeah, very strict union. So I never did get to operate any of the puppets other than in the studio. So it was fun. But I want to show something Kurt did. So Kurt was so much. So this is like, this is like the typical, Industrial Light and Magic logo, right? Yeah. So Kurt he did a monster one. I don't know if you saw this. It was like industrial. It says Industrial Light and Monsters. It says on the. You see that? It's so cute.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I've never seen that before. I love it.
That, and he did that. So it's really fun. The guy was so creative and so much fun. Everybody loved him. So
yeah,
he's a lot of opened for him.
He is still a lot of fun. I don't know if you've seen him recently, but he is. We do. I sometimes get pulled in as a guest at conventions and things, and he and I do panels together, and it is always a blast when Kirk is on your panel. Like that's
goes.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, okay, good. I don't have to prepare. I can just hand Kirk a microphone and say go, and he'll just.
Yeah, very creative.
I'm gonna talk. So obviously, the reason we got together to chat is this new Droopy McCool edition. It's one of the things we found was this great picture of you with Droopy's feet, adding latex skin to them, wearing your 80s headphones and Yoda hat, and having a grand time. Let's talk a little bit about that process, either on Droopy or just any of the characters. You started touching base on, throwing latex on things. What does that really mean?
Well, I brought you a sample. I thought you might be interested in kind of seeing what this is like. My specialties besides fur blending, which means you put fake fur together so it looks seamless, but the rubber latex skinning of all these things. So a lot of them so the boys, Phil and the boys, they'd go out and they'd see a fun sidewalk or a crack in the road or something, and they'd put a board around it and they'd make a mold out of it, and then they'd paint latex on, and they'd peel off these skins. I brought you a couple of them to show you. This is what they look like. They're like shriveled rubber, like eggs on Jello, basically. still. And you probably can't see it, but you can see there's like all kinds of
Oh yeah,
lines,
all the warts and
little
wrinkles.
things. Who knows what sidewalk that came off of, or what road. So your job is to take chip away a little bit of a piece that you need, and then you have to slip it in between a finger or under an eyeball and make a little pooch, or build up a cheek, or you put a big piece on. But it's really hard to work with because you have to put barge glue on the back, and then you put it on dot foam after Tony's done sculpting it, and then you lay it down. But it's quite a skill level to get it all flat, and just kind of where you got to build in a little bit of a wrinkle, but not too much, because then you've got to, like, all your edges have to be all tapered and put down really carefully.
Yeah.
So there's a real art to using this. But Droopy had a different skin. His skin was even more difficult to work with, because his skin was it's called a shram foam. At least that's what I called it. It's a totally smooth, very small millimeter, almost like a marshmallow, like a marshmallow, but like this, but a marshmallow. So it didn't have all the lines or anything in it. So the job on that was to cover everything and get each of the two pieces of marshmallow like perfectly joined, and you clip it, a really clean line, and then you join it together, and then you have to stipple with a little tool to that seam. And I think that's one of the things you'll see in that photograph.
That's tough.
Besides the fact that I brought my Yoda hat to show you my Droopy McCool scene.
I love it. This is like recreating history right here. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in ILM. Now I can't hear you because I got my earphones. You think about the kids today with their earplug. Look at this. She said it's a 3-inch plug.
Yeah.
You got to do a boom box. I'm listening to Alan Philosophy and Joni Mitchell and stuff. Oh my God. So you're on the earphone and just singing, and the boys are making fun of you, and they're making faces and singing behind you, but that was my Droopy. But the ears came from at Christmas and holidays and stuff, different holidays. So we'd get all these swag bags, and they'd bring George. Oh, thank you, George. We get posters of Revenge of the Jedi and Yoda hats. And when we first got there, we got the Blue Harvest hat.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Got the Blue Harvest hat because that was the code for the. They didn't want to call it. They didn't want anybody to know the name of the movie yet. So it was the Blue Harvest. And then it was Revenge of the Jedi, but then they changed it because Jedis aren't revengeful.
Right, yeah.
They just returned for the sequels, So we got a whole bunch of these before nobody got those. It was really fun. So we got
That's amazing.
Bags of swag. And
yeah, this is like, you've got the greatest closet in the world. There's monster skin, there's Yoda hats, there's nice big headphones. This is outstanding. There's a lot of headbands in your photos too. Was that just always a thing for you, or is it just like, how do I keep my hair from not getting caught in the barge?
Away from the glue, yeah, the glue, because the only way to get the barge off is, I think it was acetone. So
oh yeah,
we know, and of course they did issue us respirators, but we didn't always use them. And the glue, I think, I swear to God.
Yeah, not surprised.
It's great stuff. I had to use rubber cement on some things, but in general, to get the skins down,
it's got to be barge. Yeah.
Really
no, it's strong stuff. Yeah. I mean, anybody who's been in the puppet business knows barge. Anybody who's ever had to merge two pieces of foam, and in the monster business, it's just always around contact cement.
That was all new information for me. I had only used needle and thread. I don't.
Oh wow.
Work. I'm very, it's all sewing, and so I learned a lot about materials.
Yeah.
Not rubber latex. It's like too complicated. But for me, anyway, from a single studio, from my studio. But I learned a lot from that.
Yeah. Well, it's like the variety of creatures in that one scene in Jabba's, and you guys were also doing other stuff, Admiral Akbar and his friends and all of that stuff. But like, this was not 2 or 3 aliens that are slip rubber masks. Like, you guys did everything from puppets to giant articulated stuff to really over the top animatronics to stuff that was static. I mean, the full gamut, super imaginative designs. Like, how could you not learn?
It was very interesting.
Yeah.
Very,
One of my favorite things in the old photos, aside from the Yoda hat and the headphones, um, is your dog, Bear, who Judy remembered the name. Everybody just remembers like, oh, Jeannie had a dog. It was Jeannie's dog. And Judy was like, oh, Bear. It's like, yes.
well, Bear was a girl, number one, and I don't
Oh,
know
that's
how
funny.
she got to be called Bear, but I think because she was such a big hairy mutt that everybody called her Bear. But what were you going to say about it?
Oh, no, no. I just think it's so cool that she was allowed to hang out with you guys.
Well, the truth of the matter is, it's not a healthy place necessarily for a dog, because in my little room where I was just pins and glue and everything. But she had run into a raccoon or something. I don't know, and her nose all fallen off. So she had stitches and came. So she had to come with me to the studio for about a month so she got captured in a couple of photographs, but she wasn't the official shop dog. They they didn't dog there.
That was Kirk.
Everybody loved having Bear around, and we were calling her Pig Nose because her nose looked like the pig guards, and you come into a room and then she'd hang dog it when she came in.
Oh, poor Pooch.
But yeah, it was fun having the dog there for a while. It just kind of livened up.
I love, so John Berg is one of my favorite people in the world, and it's so funny. There's a great picture of you inside of, I think, the Boobo costume, and he's got Bear and he's just pointing. It's like, that's your mommy, and it's so him to be like right at the dog.
Where'd she go? Yeah, it was fun costume, the Boobo frog dog.
Yeah,
I worked on that quite a bit. That was one of the most hands-on for me, and it was fun because you were going to chain the bottom of it to the floor, and then they were going to cut a hole out of the floor so the performer could get halfway up, and then you're like this in it. It was really fun. I would have loved. I wish I could have performed in some of the creatures.
No, right? I love stuff like that too, where you're breaking up the human form. It's like, how do we break this out of guy in a mask?
Yeah.
And cut a hole in the floor, and there it is.
Basic.
Yeah, it was super cool. So you talked about making this stuff. Now it comes time to shoot it, and not everybody got to do this part of it, but you got to follow this stuff to England to start shooting. How was that for you as a performer, even though you couldn't get in the stuff, to be around that? How was that whole experience?
Well, it was really, really amazing. I was very, single, no kids, and I went to the producer. I said, I've got a passport. I'm single, no kids. If you need me, I'm ready to go. And actually, a couple of the performers a couple of the creature shop people got sick because I guess the Shram, the foam room, people got a little ill, I think, from being shut up in that room for months. So a couple people didn't go, and I got to go to England. It was so much fun. EMI Studios, where they shoot a lot of major motion pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Our would pick us up in the morning. It was snowing out. We'd have English breakfast, and then we'd go to the studio, and it was amazing. It was so huge. You'd walk into one room, and then another room, and then another room, and there's the captain's Akbar's control room. And over here was I got to see Yoda's little hut, from I got to meet Oz. It was on Frank Oz and Yoda. It was really cool.
That's outstanding.
Fill up. So every room was, how do you get back to the same room where it was? It was amazing. At one set after another, and it's all dark, until the lights go on, it's dark.
Right. That's amazing. It really has to feel like you're walking into another world.
It was definitely mysterious and dark, and where am I, and what's going to happen, and then it just kind of, you think, how could that all come together? And then piece by piece. You go in the morning, and the lights go on, and you're handed some things, and you help dress some people, and you stand by. We were cooling people up with hair blowers, with giant what
Giant.
12-volt battery packs or whatever those things are. The big volt packs on our thing.
Like
Cool
the
air.
cameramen used to have.
I mean, before everything was Bluetooth and everything now, whatever,
Yeah.
chargeables. And so then, with towels and water, and we just took care of the performers, and everything worked fine. I mean, I didn't see where there was any at the back, what we were working on at that time, any repairs or anything needed to be done. And a lot of time just sitting around waiting. All right, let's go. All right, waiting.
That sounds like the film industry.
They don't pay us the big bucks to sit around.
Right. Yeah. And keeping people alive in those things is no easy task. Like anybody who's ever been in one of these suits knows almost immediately you start to overheat. Like it is not a short trip from being very comfortable to being extremely uncomfortable.
Well, I've done a lot of mascot work, and I think women are really well suited to it because they can modulate their temperature better. Guys get really hot fast, I think, because I've been in a lot of costumes, and they do get hot, not on camera, just regular performing out in the real world. But they were so careful of the performers. The heads off, heads on. Everything was designed to pop on, pop off. So I don't think the people I dealt with, they weren't necessarily suffering. Maybe some of the little people in Jabba were getting a little steamy. I know the Ewoks were.
Yeah.
They were coming out of the suits.
Yeah. Well, so you did wind up going then so coming back from England. Now where are you headed? You're still wrangling?
The thing with the creature shop, okay, you're done, goodbye, out the door. And then I got to go think, oh my God, this is so great. Okay, you're done, goodbye, go. But I had gotten, I don't know, noticed by wardrobe or something. And I think C3PO put in a good word for me too.
Oh.
So I got the next location, which was Yuma, Arizona. That was really fun because that's what we saw. That was the Hans is frozen and he falls. He comes out of the frozen block, and we saw stuntmen break their leg. And we did dune buggy rides up the hill. It was really fun. It was a couple of weeks.
That set was amazing.
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, it was a real set too. There wasn't in those days. It wasn't all, what do you call it? Digital or whatever you want to call it. It was like a real sand pit and real plywood with like rubber teeth. So when the stuntman, when Jabba pulls the thing and he falls down the chute.
Yeah.
The guy's really jumping off the edge of this plywood thing. We lost two pieces
Insanity.
the hospital on. They finally, because the angle was too sharp. Anyway, it finally worked out.
Yeah.
But it was really fun. I got to meet Chewbacca. It was so sweet, and it was really fun. And see what else happened at that one. Yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, some of those stunts you're talking about were intense too. Like those are big jumps into a foam mouth with teeth and maybe some cardboard boxes.
Oh, the stunt guys, they couldn't wait to do it. Oh, yeah, wait to jump.
Better them than me.
And nobody died. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Bruised.
Yeah, I think what was it? The first guy in broke his leg.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
That's a tough one to be the second guy.
So we got Carrie Fisher for the first time too at the sand thing. Yeah, we saw her in a beautiful little costume. She was like tiny little thing. She was so cute. Yeah.
That's outstanding though. That's a lot of fun. I think I always am so impressed just by that set, the grandeur of it. What they built was really impressive there. And so there you were doing the same thing, keeping people alive, keeping people dressed, getting guys in and out.
It was we actually got shut down for a couple of days because this dust storm came in. You couldn't see in front of your hand. It was really it's kind of like Burning Man almost.
Right.
Except it goes up and down. There's it's a very hilly desert instead of flat. But yeah,
that's scary stuff. So
really, it wasn't warm. It was just time of year it was not warm.
Well, that's lucky, in the middle of the desert. Um,
Well, by the time we got to Yuma, Arizona, there was still snow on the ground.
oh gosh.
Crescent City. By the time we got to Crescent City, it was
Oh,
still brown.
and I was gonna say, so is that next? Now you're in, Ewok land?
Right. Well, then I got to be C-3PO's dresser and got sort of taken under the wing of the wardrobe department with Aggie Rogers' ladies.
Mm.
And I washed tights. I washed Anthony's tights. Those
With,
wardrobe ladies
with the wires on them?
knew how to melt. Yes, knew how to melt the overtime. I'll tell you. Northern California was really great. It was cold, but it was really beautiful. We're up in the woods and ferns everywhere, and the Ewoks were having a great time.
Yes, I've heard that. That's great. I love the C-3PO is another costume that is just you just always believe it's a robot. It doesn't read fake, I mean, it must have been interesting getting him in and out of there. I know that's not the simplest costume to get in and out of. How long does that take?
I guess the first edition took forever. The third, by the time they got to this one, they had really streamlined the process to make it easier for him. So it was like sandwich, you sandwich it in, close it off, you sandwich it in, you close it off. But there was a lot of open areas like elbows and knees where obviously he could move. So it was very well constructed. And again, the hat goes on last.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so I was there to assist his personal needs, water, cup of tea. He was a very funny guy. very, 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 very funny guy. And we used to play little jokes on him. I think he was really funny. I don't know. I can't remember what they were now, but there was another photographer there would just prank him all the time. It was so funny.
Oh, no.
So we always had a good laugh going on with Tony.
You have to have some trust, he's got to have real trust in you. That's a costume where you're literally screwed into it, if I'm not mistaken, and pinned in. Like he is fully dependent on you. If he needs to get out of that mask, he's not doing it on his own, right?
Well, that's true. That's true. But the closer, in some ways, the closer a mask is to your own mouth and eyes,
Right.
the less scary it is in a way, even though you're in it. If you're in a big piece, a big thing, I've had dreams of falling in the water in a big thing, and get out, I would drown. I had made a pelican costume once, and I had to be on a boat with it, and I was always scared. What if I fall in the water? I'll never get out. Like hermetically sealed. But I think Tony, it had a lot of air to it, a lot of comfort zones. I think he never complained about. He never complained about it. I never heard him say, "Oh, this is terrible. It hurts," or anything. They would take him out of it right away if he needed to.
Yeah.
Or stretch his back or something. They're so solicitous of the principles of how make it as easy for them and as comfortable for them. So some people might be claustrophobic. Some people can't wear these kinds of costumes, and some of us don't mind being under the floor with our arm in the air for 2 hours. We don't that.
Well, yeah, you don't get a lot of prima donna puppeteers. There's not a lot of room for extra ego when you're tucked in a box underneath a table. And
His armpit.
Right. Yeah. So we talked about your dog Bear. There's another bear, and it's listed on IMDb. You're listed as Bear in the movie Howard the Duck, and I have to ask about that.
That was really fun. I auditioned for a part in Howard the Duck, which I guess was not the most successful movie in the world.
Not the most.
I'm still getting residuals for that. I can't believe it. Every month I get $10, $5. The audition entailed riding a 1950 Panhead Harley or whatever it was. Right. So I had a friend who taught me how to ride a motorcycle. And I went to the audition. I got one end of the parking lot in the back, and I strutted myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I got the part, and it was really fun. I sent you a picture of it, so you can check it out on I sent you a picture.
It's like the most 80s looking makeup in the world.
It was really one day's work, but a little claim to fame beyond Howard. I mean, it's sort of a memorable movie for its fame.
Yeah, it's infamous, right? That's outstanding. what's it like? So, I mean, this is one of those things where it's amazing to me how much time has passed. So, you guys, I'll fanboy for a minute here. I got to do what I do because I watched the making ofs and I saw people like you messing with foam, carrying pig guard parts around, and
Yeah.
wearing costumes. And that, I mean, as a 10 and 12-year-old kid, made me go, okay, how do I reverse engineer what they're doing and do it here? And then doing it there led to me now, doing this for my life. And um, I owe you a great debt for helping turn me on to this stuff and for being an inspiration. And I think it's amazing to me that how long ago this feels, and how recent it feels. For you, is this something where it's like, oh, this feels like it was yesterday, or is it like, oh, that feels like ages ago?
It feels very much like part of the fabric of who I am and what I've done. It doesn't feel like it's in the past.
Yeah.
And having you contact me, and thank you, Phil, very much for allowing me to get some little credit working with Droopy McCool. But it just feels as part of the fabric of who I've been all along, creative and sticking my hand in puppets. And I'm a fur ball up to my ears. And until recently, I'm just, you're laying on the floor looking up at the tummy of a camel or something. I've just laid in the dust and the pins and the dirt forever on one hand. And on the other hand, I get in these costumes, whether it's a mermaid costume or something very glamorous, or it's a hairball, and I get to perform. So I always tell performers, everybody wants to be a performer, but if you don't have a costume, you got to have the costume. So it's like, if you want to be in the movies, don't wait for the audition, produce your own or do your own. Well, same thing with what I did. I just went out and, I have hundreds and hundreds of costumes that I built since Lucasfilm,
Yeah.
that I for corporate entertainment, high-end events at museums and mayors, and some very high-end things in San Francisco. Beautiful costumes, big headdresses, and stilt walking and roller skating and
Wow.
things for kids. And so I build all these costumes. So it seems like Jedi is such a huge, I don't know, like just a huge accomplishment for me. When I tell people about it, their eyes just get wider and
Right.
wider and wider. And then I have other things. I've been on the cover of National Geographic. I've done things for the New York, for San Francisco Opera and for the ballet and different. I'm proud of all the things I've done. But with Jedi, it's like I was just a kid in a candy store. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I just walked into this kind of wide-eyed, oh, I want to be a puppeteer, and next thing you know, you're up to your ears in glue, and then you're hosing off Ewoks, and then you're dressing Tony, and now, how many years later, I'm signing, people send me, I sign autographs for people, and people have come to sign posters. And then this has been the most fun, though, doing the Droopy McCool, because
Thanks.
and listening to the other artists talk about their time there, like Judy's stories and everything, just brought it back so vividly. The pizza, Friday pizzas, and going to lunch, and you get there in the morning, and by the time you get out, it's dark, and it just brought back so many memories of doing that. And you're only working on one little tiny piece at a time, part of this big thing. With my company, I am the big thing. I work on it, I'm in it, I'm doing it. But with Lucasfilm, you're just this tiny little cog in the wheel that has grown and sustained and gone on all these years. It's just amazing that people want an autograph. Just the tech people in the background in the creature shop, but now I realize how exciting that is to still hold that toy in your hand, to hold that memory, to be part of it, to have been part of it, and to be able to share my experience with people. My favorite part of any movie is the making of it. I love to go to the making of it, see what's going on in the background, see the voiceover talent, and how they put the makeup on. If you're that kind of person, some people just want the magic part. They don't want to know, they don't want to see what's behind the curtain. But you and I, we like to see what's behind the curtain.
That's the real magic. You know, it's
Well, it's both.
otherwise it's a documentary. You know, it's like, oh, someone pointed a camera at it and it just happened. It's like, no, it's a miracle that it happens. How did that happen? Show me, you know.
Well, it was a long time ago. The state of the arts, those days. I mean, that was state of the art. What you
Yeah.
saw special about the light and magic thing, it
Yes.
was A plus. I guess my face is in there a little bit. I'm very proud of myself. It's fun. But I mean, they showed how it went from nobody was doing that. It was like, King Kong like moving like that. Then the first time I saw what was it? One of those Pixar movies where the hair was, you blow on the hair and it looked so real. I couldn't believe it. I hadn't seen a cartoon like that ever. So I mean, Disney, I mean, Lucasfilm and Disney, they've done these amazing things too.
Yeah.
So
It
yeah,
really, yeah, it has come such a long way. And
yeah.
but the moments in time where there are leaps, you know, it's like that Pixar leap, and then there's like the Star Wars leap, and you
Big,
got to be a part of that.
nobody. I mean, science fiction at that point was like, that with the flying toaster on a string. I love that, the satire. A rocket ship on a string, right?
Yeah,
Nobody, I mean, not quite that primitive, but really.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what's it like? I mean, you might have kind of covered this already, but you know, going back to the Droopy thing for a moment, um, which again, thank you for being a part of that edition. Like, it's so great for us to bring the people who worked on the stuff into it, and for me, celebrate the stuff that I care about so much and that helped me get to where I am. But what's been really great is how many of our fans are the same kind of fans and are the same kind of people who love that behind the scenes and who love these people that contributed and love figuring out what people's contributions were and how this all happened. How is it for you knowing that, you know, there are now going to be 200 people that get this little, you know, lump of a guy, this great little sculpture with your signature plaque, and that they want to put it in a place of reverence. They want it on a shelf. They want to look at it. Is that what does that do for you?
Well, I mean, I think that's so amazing. When I first walked into the monster shop, those maquettes were sitting on a shelf,
Yeah.
row after row of that. And I didn't even know what they were there for, what they were. And every week, Phil, like people were saying, Phil would take them to George, pick that one, and bring it back. No, pick that one, pick that one. And there was Droopy. He was so cute. And they picked that one. Now, the Monster Boys, they did most of the work on that costume. I just skinned it. I did my contribution, but the actual sculpting of it, the creation of the design from the art direction, uh, George picking it, Bill bringing it back, allocating who was going to sculpt it, who was going to build up the foam, how are we going to get somebody inside it. That was all part of a massive teamwork to make that happen. And I got to do my little part, kind of go from toe to head and put all the glump on it, get all the peel the glue off, and work with the shram foam. So, and then it was just a whole fun day of listening to music with my Yoda hat and, get into it. You just, here's another piece. And then you go home and you got one leg done and you come back and maybe you got a hand done. You come back and you got the butt done. You had these really cute
Get a lot of
yeah. And then watch the guys spray them. They had this big wall of respirator where the air would just suck all the chemicals out of the room. And they were airbrushing them. And I mean, Phil was a master painter. There were a couple of painter people there. And then you watch it all get painted and they'd put the eyes in and it would come to life. It was really magical. And so Droopy was everybody loved him. He was such a great big fat baby, little Buddha baby. So he's really cute. He's one of my favorites, of course.
nice. And now, all these years later, everybody gets that little Buddha baby on their shelf with your signature and a little piece of your history, of Star Wars history all together. I'm excited to, I mean, I've got mine on the shelf already because I've got, I always get the first one when we do the paint masters. I'm like, okay, mine, right on the shelf. Um, I, you know, this is now, there's a question I often ask, which is, do creatives ever retire? And I feel like I don't even need to ask you that question because just from talking to you, I can tell this is never going to stop for you, is it?
I'm somewhat retired. I'm kind of thinking, well, what is there a new chapter for me? Is there something that's going to capture my imagination other than gardening? And I
Yeah.
do a lot of labor. I do yoga and dance and stuff, but I am working on this film project for kids. It's underdeveloped at this point, but we made these puppets for this amazing project called Beneath the Dragonwood Trees. And I'm helping produce it. I'm the caterer. I'm the makeup artist. I'm the prop. I bring my apple boxes. I bring my scissors and scotch tape and needle and thread. But I made two of these amazing puppets with Brian Turner. Now, Brian Turner was a creature technician. We haven't talked about him too much. He
Yeah.
was genius. This guy could fix anything, do anything. He was mostly with Skiff in the Stuart Zip in the mechanical room where they were doing all the
Oh yeah.
metal. I never even walked. I didn't never even went in. That was a whole mystery, that room. I never, I'm doing the soft, squishy stuff. They were sawing metal and screwing together, and pig guard fingers were broken. Oh, that was so funny. But anyway, so Brian and I teamed up after Jedi, and we had a very successful costume design, mascots, puppet career until he passed away a few years ago. But we made these two puppets for this Beneath the Dragonwood Trees program. So, and I'm going to show you one in a minute. It's just so
Oh,
you do. I don't know. I'm not making any money doing this. In fact, I'm losing, but
maybe,
but
yeah.
a lot of fun with this.
Maybe I guess retire is the wrong word. What is it like? Do creatives ever stop? And I don't know that I don't know that they do. I feel like they just constantly. And this guy's amazing. I can see already.
So this is about this puppet. It's a full body puppet, which you don't normally get. Normally you get a half puppet.
Yeah.
But the body puppet, so he can do anything he wants. And I did him so he has a lot of the motion. Once again, is he alive? I'm alive. Look at those eyes.
Yeah.
That's Brian Turner. Brian Turner did this.
That's outstanding. I love it.
So anyway, that's one of the projects I'm working on, this puppet, dance, ballet, children's fairy tale kind of a thing. So
that's
that's
super cool.
It's a kind of pro bono. Been working on it for a few years, but it takes a lot of money to put a film together. It really does.
Oh yeah. No, he's amazing. I love the eyes. I love the depth to them, and the eye mechanism is just life. That the
hardest part.
Always, but yeah, and I assume that's an internal control, like one of those little ring to make the guy blink and move. Is that's your right hand?
Like this, but then you've got one finger going across the top.
Okay, yeah.
Pulls back.
Yeah. So, very cool.
So Brian Turner, you'll see his name on the credits, and that guy could do proportions and patterns, and we had a lot of fun together, many years.
Yeah, seems like. I'm so glad. Thank you for, one, not just, sitting down and having this chat and sharing all your stories, but two, for bringing so many props and pieces to it. I think you have definitely, you have now surpassed everybody else's in terms of number of props and puppets and things that they brought. I'm going to be, if I ever get, I got to do one with, I don't think we've ever done with Kirk Thatcher. If we ever do, I'm going to tell him, like, the bar is pretty high now. Like, you're going to have to bring a lot of stuff. But I'll just, I think this is a great place to wrap it up. Thank you so much for sitting down.
I'm looking for a cat.
Ah, yes, yeah, yeah. We'll have yours out very soon, actually. And thank you for being a part of this edition, for sharing your stories with the fans who are going to bring this Droopy home. And I wish you the absolute best.
Thank you, Tom. Good luck.